Hey, it's your boy Elder Rich here, and you're watching Envy's channel.
What's up, guys? It's Envy. Now we're back for another episode of Sit Down with Envy, and today I have special guest Elo owner Toot Toot.
Hey, what's up, guys?
So we're gonna start off. Just tell the people a little bit about yourself.
So I've been part of the Oceanic kind of amateur League of Legends scene since about 2019. I've worked with various community organizations such as BSV and SumSoc, and now I've launched my own tournament org called Esports League Oceania. I've also worked with Riot Games. I've done production work at a professional level, and that's pretty much all there is to know about me when it comes to this scene.
Right. So let's touch on Elo. Right. You mentioned you've started your own org. Tell the people who may not know about it a little bit about Elo.
Yeah, so Esports League Oceania, or ELO for short, provides League of Legends tournaments to the Oceania community. We have been doing this since about July last year. We also run giveaways, we stream these events, and we're pretty much all about kind of building the competitive scene in Australia and New Zealand. Um, I am hopeful that over the next kind of year or so, we can definitely get things going. But yeah, there's not much to tell you about that.
Not much to say about Elo. Well, what makes Elo different from the old guard per se, the BSV when it was around, the little league championships, the Total Mayhem Gamings of the world.
So I really want to focus on some different things. I've been part of BSV. I've been part of SumSoc, and there was I think a real lack of focus from some of these organizations, and I really want to focus on having quality events, and that is like first and foremost what we do. Um, and that kind of starts from myself. I've learned a lot over these years. Not everyone's perfect at the start, but it's something I've kind of worked over the past 3 years, and I think apart from that, I really want to kind of professionalize the amateur scene. And what I mean by that, it's not supposed to be LCO, of course, but I just mean I want people to kind of come in and everything runs smoothly. They have a good experience, and I feel like that's something that's been missing for years.
Yeah, it's a bit undergroundy, right? Like less
Yeah, well, it's
professional.
it's it's uh, it's been a bit like it's been run out of someone's garage, or it's bootleg.
Yeah, it does happen. So let's touch on maybe the first big move from Elo. So you guys had ran a couple Iron to Plats beforehand, but
Yep.
then you guys made the acquisition of taking over the Bronze Standard 5 server. Walk me through that.
Yeah, so when we launched in last year, we were initially open for a short while before I kind of shut things down for a bit and had to really have a rethink on how things are going to go. I think that I was trying to start start too big, kind of try and make it to the top really fast. And I kind of went away for a bit and thought things over, and realized that we had to start we had to start building community trust. We had to start from the bottom, put out events and show that these events can work,
Yeah.
and so that's what we did. But when I kind of start things up again, I did notice that some of the community organizations were in a kind of lull state, and I figured it would be a massive benefit if I could take over one of these servers. So I spoke with various people, with various organizations, uh, but in the end, after a period of time, the opportunity to kind of take over BSV did come, and so I jumped on that opportunity. Um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I just felt it was a good way for us to get the events out to people. It was all about um, kind of growing our numbers and getting the product out to as many people as we could.
Yeah, I feel that because the BSV server had 2,500 members, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. Um, they weren't all active, but it was built over a period of 2.5 years. Um, but yeah, some of the organizations have, they've taken a step back once the right funding went away and people had to start thinking about whether or not they were wanting to prize the events themselves. You kind of saw the organizations that weren't willing to put anything else into the scene outside of their time. They all stepped back and they've kind of all just fallen off.
yeah. So kind of after right pricing went, there was at the time I was actually part of BSV myself, and we had a long conversation about how we could sustain events, and I think we went for some failed ventures to fix the issue. Um, in the end, I think we figured we had to run events without prizing, and then the events we did prize, they had to be larger in scope, like a ladder or a circuit or just something of that nature. Um, but yeah, as you said, it's unfortunate that over time we've seen some of the other organizations like ECB and Rift Republic, similar people but different. Little league champions,
Yeah.
just all these organizations have kind of fallen off, and then we still have some like existing organizations. We have some in the society still. We have Team G still, who've been inactive for a while, but they haven't closed all yet. So like, hopefully we see something out of them, because I think it's important that there isn't just one player in the scene. We need more organizations out here kind of pushing each other to be
a,
in
a
top
better
form.
version of themselves, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, I can kind of relate that to when I was playing Iron to Gold, right? Peak Envy Iron to Gold.
Peak
Not
envy. Okay.
this was peak Iron to Gold Envy. I've
Okay.
now hit plat since then, but I it was very hard for me to stay motivated because it was me, and then because I had the superstar stack team, it was like, oh, I could show up and play 4 out of 10, and we're still gonna win the game. And it was only after you know my, my team disbanded and I started like shifting onto some other rosters, and it's like, shit, these rosters aren't as dominant. I now have to play better, but because of all the time I took to coast, a lot of the other mid laners had then also reached towards the same level, and so it was a lot harder for me. But if, for instance, if I had people pushing me at the same time, it may have been a whole different story.
So, so what you're saying is that you pulled a little Burger King. Took some time off and or slacked off a bit, and
Now
now
you're
you get
washed.
shown up, and now you get shown up by the rookie.
Yeah, well, it seems that way nowadays. It's not a question of when is Envy gonna feed. It's a question of how many deaths.
So how many deaths did you get in your last tournament game?
There was actually quite a few. Uh
Okay.
it was rough. We lost the WKW Alpha. Not fun. It was actually an ELO event. Who would have known?
Yeah, well, I think it was my fault because you weren't streamed.
Yeah, look, you play 10 times better on stream. Like, 45 people being able to watch and clip me running it down, good motivation.
Well, I did want to touch a bit more on just what I mentioned a bit earlier about like competition in the scene. Um, this is kind of going back, a few years now. I think that what I'll initially lead with is that competition in the scene was toxic back in the day, back in my day.
It's great
Um,
fun. It was very fun.
it was
Continue.
really cutthroat between a couple of organizations. And I don't think I don't actually think that that was great for the scene. It was there was elements that were good because like the orgs were trying really hard to one up each other, and we saw some rapid improvement in some areas, but um, I think it did hurt both orgs in the end. Um, maybe perception of one org and the other org's ability to put on events. But I do think it's really important because I want to be able to put on events and see what other people are doing and realizing like, oh man, like I think a perfect example, and this isn't even a tournament organization, but Avalanche hosting their Irons of Plat trials recently. Their graphics are like the best thing I've seen in the past like few years in this whole scene. And they're just like streaming the Irons of Plat trials, and they were great. And now I'm like super motivated to try and improve our product
To one up
because
them.
I don't want to get shown up by some people hosting the Irons of Plat trials,
Yeah, imagine having graphics flying plat trials. Mate, I'm lucky if I have one coach in my channel. You know what I'm saying?
One yeah. How many coaches do you need?
I'm uncoachable.
Okay, just straight uncoachable.
I'm uncoachable. But yeah, it's when fire meets fire kind of thing. Um, I also agree. Very cutthroat back in the day. There's some very fun stories. Um, but that would be like naming and shaming people, and I don't do it too often. But it was, I think back then it was interesting for the scene because the scene was bigger, and because it was bigger, we had the ability to like share like teams on the night. Whereas now, if you saw two organizations running a tournament, people will flock to whichever one has the biggest prize pool. And regardless of the name of the org, unless you like flat out hated the people running it or disliked, may I, change that wording to, then you're going with how much money can you win.
Yeah, I do think it's the case. I think people want an incentive to play. Um, I definitely do remember scenarios where organizations kind of hit up an event on another organization's day, and both organizations were still able to run the event, but it was kind of a
It
it
was
was
quite
kind
a
of a
it's quite a
it was
meme.
it was kind of a dog move, I guess you could say. But I guess you could say it would cause some ultimate mayhem.
Ultimate mayhem, huh?
Yeah.
Good wording. Do we? Good times, good times. Now, so since those days, right, where some organizations were pulling 30 teams, 40 teams at a given time. Now we are starting to see the team numbers go down. Now, I personally think it's people improving because the numbers are going down in the low elo scene, right? So I don't think anymore you'd be able to run iron to golds. I don't think there's enough teams for an iron to gold event anymore because a lot of players moved up from gold into plat, which would make them not eligible for an iron to gold event.
No, yeah, that happens. I was actually speaking with some people recently about even people moving from plat to diamonds, and and then these people move from plat to diamonds, and you don't then see them play in the diamond tournaments. They just kind of decide, oh, I'm just going to do my own thing now.
Yeah.
Just play, whether that's play casually or just continue focusing on ranked.
Is that because a lot of the diamond tournaments, like, because from what I keep hearing now, I'm no expert because I'm not up there, but I keep hearing, Diamond 4 is so much worse than Diamond 1, right? Just on like a skill gap disparity. So is this the Diamond 4 players not thinking that they can compete at that level, so they just don't even try? Kinda like when, going back to an Iron to Plat event, you're not gonna see those Silver 4 players sign up very often to like an Iron to Plat event because they're gonna get this shit rolled by a Plat 1 player. Is this the
And
same scenario?
yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's an element of that. I think if you're a newer like a newer esports club or whatever you want to call it, who's trying to take part in these events and run a high-low roster, uh, it is hard to attract some of the better players in the scene. And so, you run your trials, and then you may end up with a roster of, mostly low diamonds. And while that team would smash anyone in Iron's Plat, it doesn't really compete. Like, how are you supposed to compete with, Weekend Warriors and Avalanche and MCOM, who are generally running very high elo rosters ranging from Diamond to Challenger? And I think, I think ideally, like in an ideal world, there would actually be another gap. We used to have Iron to Gold and Iron to Plat. As you said, there probably isn't enough teams floating around to do that right now. But I do believe that there is potential to split the kind of diamond teams in half and have like a Division A and a Division B. And from those divisions, you have all the top teams battle out in A. The teams that, may need some more work, or just aren't quite as high rank or not as established, haven't as much practice, all these different things. They can battle out in Division B, and then you get to the end, and then best teams from Division B will fight the best teams from Division A for their spot. And I feel like that's like a quite a good solution for that.
Yeah.
Um,
Kind of like a relegation two-tier
yeah,
ladder
it's
system.
kind of like how like LCS used to be really. You had to fight for your spot at the end if you were one of the worst teams. Um, I think the difference is it's not as bad dropping from LCS to Academy as it is dropping from A to B.
It'd be
Um,
embarrassing if you're one of the top orgs though.
yeah, I guess so, but that's more incentive to just do better and
Just win. Just win,
just
forehead.
win, yeah.
Yeah.
But to bring up like a specific name, I think Jacob or Havoc, was like a really good player in Iron's Plat, who's now, I think he's at least Diamond 1 now. I'm unsure,
I think he
and
just
he
did
doesn't really.
Masters.
Okay. And he doesn't really play in these tournaments. I do think it's unfortunate because, instead of like a nice upwards progression, um, that's not to say he never plays in these tournaments. I want to clarify that he has, but he's just not a consistent player. But he hasn't kind of played in these things.
Yeah, look, he it's a weird one, right? Because there are players who they would much rather grind the game, especially if if they're working a job during the day, they can either play a tournament or look to grind solo queue, right? Some people, if they don't think that they and their team can compete, they'll just grind the solo queue, right? Because potentially you could then get yourself onto a better roster if your account looks attractive enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you also have like aspirations for making a higher league like LCO, you're going to look more attractive being Challenger or Grandmaster than sitting in Diamond 1, but having team experience. They're not going to care so much about the team experience compared to showing that individually you're of that level.
Because they'll think you can't compete and they won't even give you a second look.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like when again Gold 4 players trialing for plat teams. It's like homie, you can't even play in that level in solo queue.
Yeah, any names come to mind? Like Gold 4 consistently?
Uh, Look, I'll get backlash if I drop their name, but there's a couple people that I'm thinking of when I say stuff like that. But uh,
I was thinking of someone 3 words.
3 words.
I think people are kind of envious of him.
What do you mean? I'm goal one at the moment, man. Yeah, I might be close to plat after like before this episode drops. I
Before this,
just
you're just gonna have to hit plat to prove me wrong before you
I
launch the episode.
shit. My episode's gonna be buried for 6 months. Unlucky.
Yeah,
Um, but back onto the topic. So we're discussing how the scene has gone in a downwards trend, right? And
yeah,
various reasons, such as players wanting to focus on solo queue, especially the other main one, which I don't think I even brought up, is as players get older, if they're having less and less time due to jobs, girlfriends, maybe they have a family, right? So they can't spend the 3.5 hours on a tournament at night anymore.
yeah.
So I think that is a real possibility. Um, and it's unfortunately that is life. But I want to hear your thoughts on ways to improve the scene.
Just quickly before I touch on that, just like an ending point to kind of like the general downtrend. Um, Without touching on specifics, but of course, there's been so much drama over the years, and that hasn't been good for the scene. Um, and it's it's interesting for the people who stick around, but it does drive a lot of people away from the scene. They don't want to deal with that. But I'd also like to touch on I think one of the biggest failures of like these community organizations, and obviously I've been part of these community organizations, so I'm putting that failure on myself as well.
Blackout Esports. Oh,
Black.
sorry. Continue.
No, one of the biggest failures is the inability to bring in new players. Um, it's hard to find a consistent way to advertise outside of a kind of Discord sphere of influence, and I definitely think there was more that could have been done about that. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much all I want to add to that.
Well, I definitely agree. Right. People could have used their platforms and so I know Razy, the owner of Imcom, right on
Yeah,
one of his gold accounts when he was looking to form his gold rosters, he'd play solo queue games and he would add the players who play well and see if they want to come trial.
yeah, I
Um,
heard about that. I thought that was a genius idea, actually.
and so that's potentially how you got names like Elderidge into the scene and other famous gold players from MCOM,
Mm.
right? It's all through the networking of solo queue, right? You bring one person in, they bring in two people who they know who they might want to play on a team with, and then potentially maybe those other people, and it's a train, but it doesn't end up happening if the person doesn't make the initial contact to try and bring someone into the scene.
No, yeah, definitely.
So how do we improve it too?
Improvements. That's a really difficult one. I think I think there's like a few things. I don't think it's easily sustainable to self-fund these events like forever. I
Yeah.
think, I think there's already some burnout from people who have funded these events in the past. They're not
There's a
as well
limit
willing to
of
do that.
what people are willing to spend on
Yeah,
what most people would consider a hobby.
yeah. And I definitely think that there needs to be a lot more focus by these organizations on how they're going to fund these events, whether that's sponsors, with that tournament buy-ins, which I know was quite a controversial one recently.
Not a lot of people like tournament buy-ins because they
Yeah,
actually have to
well,
put something on the line. It's more of a take
yeah,
kind of
I think like
philosophy.
if you look at like other esports, let's just Rocket League, CS:GO, Rainbow Six. I think that a buy-in for an event is a lot more acceptable. Or even if you look at real sports, you look at going to play for your cricket club, your local cricket club, you're probably paying $50 to buy into the cricket club, but now there is like associated benefits to buying in. I will say that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think some of the organizations don't have like good community trust behind them right now. And so if they want to have teams buy in, they're gonna have to rebuild that trust and like kind of show that their events are. I think worth playing in is the wrong word because most of the events around here are worth playing in, but it's more worth investing,
Financially in.
like yeah, financially in, you know. Um, but but in return, the orgs are gonna have to probably provide more if they want to run buy-ins. I can't really give you any easy answers, but potentially the orgs could provide more content. You know, there isn't
Yeah.
much video content in the scene, for example. Potentially they could offer more giveaways. Potentially they could offer something else, whatever it is.
So
Um,
sorry to cut you off.
yeah, you go.
I had a couple. So when when I was around BSV, with the like Josh iteration, I had a couple thoughts, and it became really apparent to me when I left the team again because we went through the Rift Royale, right, where there were a couple highlight packages, but nothing like too big. I myself did a little bit of content on it. There's
Yeah,
like my couple videos and basically just around my own team. And then we had there was like some player interviews, but you find especially if you've just won, some of them can be like quite scuffy interviews and the quality of them end up being even lower. Whereas I think, if you want to ask the organizations to buy in, potentially you run like a LCS format. You do, 8 teams. They all buy in for the spot, or however you wanna do that part, and then you have to at least do maybe like a piece of content with someone on that roster every like 4 weeks, or that way you can then get like the team's recognition out. Um, if for instance, you could potentially get the teams could get sponsors, right? Because it would be a league format where but we would have to. It would be more of a high elo solution than a low elo solution because typically a lot more people watch the high elo play just because the quality of game is a lot higher, unless in, let's say, the Iron to Plat there is a really good storyline going on. Then that's typically when you'll see a lot of the players come watch an Iron to Plat game. Is if player A has beef with player B on the enemy team, then they'll be like, oh, who's actually gonna win the game? You know, that's and I find a lot of the time the organization isn't using the fact that they have beef to drum up some like market value off of it. If that makes any sense to you too.
yeah. I mean that makes sense. I think it's
Missed opportunity.
if I can come back to that. So I'll explain something and then come back to that because I think that'll make it like a bit easier for me.
Yep.
Um, I definitely agree that the community organizations running these events could do more to put the spotlight on players and team organizations. I will give some of the society some praise there. They did a better job in the past couple of splits of doing this. Even some of their interviews was quite good. Now, of course, this is all high elo, but and they ran some kind of segments with these players, but I definitely think more could still be done there. Um, I think when it comes to like highlighting storylines, I do think that's like a really interesting point. Um, I just can't like really think of any that come to mind without like, 'cause sometimes a lot of storylines around here are just like so drama filled, and it's like do you have a rivalry with someone who
I
who you don't have
I
big beef with though?
uh the one that comes to mind is Galaxy Bear,
Okay,
right?
yeah,
Like,
no, I can see that.
so it'd be like every single time we played each other. Now, if you do like a ladder, right, and
Yeah,
let's say it's double round robin, you have like a trash talk segment, somewhat similar to like LCK, right? Because a lot of people, especially in the low elo, we're all happy to talk shit before the game, right? Especially when you start getting like to some of like the bigger personalities, right? Like I personally, I'm very happy to talk before the game. I find it very, very like disingenuous if you don't talk shit beforehand, but you talk shit after you win. It's like you're not putting money where your mouth is, in my personal opinion. So let's say we play G, like me and G Bear, we play each other twice in that ladder.
yeah.
First one's a best of three. He whitewashes me 2-0. I die, let's say 12 times over the two games, and I get like three kills, right?
Is that reportable?
Well, potentially not because I have not into Jiba, but it typically happened to me a lot back in some days. We would just run it down just for fun. Neymar probably annoyed me somehow. And
Yeah,
then,
okay.
let's say we then play them again 4 weeks later, going before the games, you could then pull up, maybe like a graphic of, oh, well, last time these teams met, Envy didn't look very good, right? Let's see if he can bounce back and have a much better series. And you just you pull up the champions, the matchups, if you wanted to, and like you did know of like some actual like good storylines before the games happen, you could potentially get like a high elo player to take a look at some of like the laning phase and be like, oh, this is what this player did really well to make this player play more uncomfortably. There's a lot there's a lot of options when it comes to some of the stuff. The high elo player, they get a little bit more exposure if that's what, some sort of like analyst stuff that they're wanting to go after. And it gives the scene a little bit more content to work with.
No, yeah, I definitely do. I definitely agree. Like, those are good ideas. Um, I think in terms of production, I think there's like always been attempts to kind of like weave in some context and storyline to like the stream.
Yeah.
Um, but that like I'm just being honest, it's really difficult sometimes um to to provide all this content because generally you have your casters and your tournament admins and people who make your graphics and different roles and sometimes it's hard to have someone whose job is to just sit there and find all the storylines. But
Yeah.
no, I definitely agree. Like, it's a really good idea. It adds a lot more meaning to the games, especially if it's Iron to Plat.
Yeah, because you're not
Um,
you're not watching it for the mechanics. You're watching it for the
well,
drama.
well, it depends. Like, you could watch it for the mechanics, but we're just going into opposite scale of good mechanics. We're looking for the funny mechanics.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you go to any right, I guarantee you go to any organization, so like an actual like organization's Twitch, you go through their clips, the top 4 or 5 are always someone misplaying. There's no there's no like highlight outplay. It's someone's
Yeah,
someone's fucked up.
I
And
can't
it's
remember what happens in the clip, but I know BSV's one is from Bang Bang.
yeah, he tower dives with no minions,
Yeah,
and Maokai roots him under the tower and he dies.
yeah, it's classic.
It is very classic. You know, there's my misfortune random with alt, and yeah, so like some of those are pretty fun to look at. It's fun to laugh at yourself and at your peers, as long as it's not done in like a nasty way.
No, yeah, definitely.
Right. So Toot, how are we gonna fix these problems in the OCE community?
It all starts with the community organizations. It's up to them to find a team that works well for them to refine their product, and that means um, like adding a level of professionalism to what they're providing. I think there hasn't been much professionalism to how these organizations run, and I understand that these are volunteer organizations, but that doesn't mean that there can't be a level of professionalism that makes the community trust the product and want to actually take part in these events. I think that is like actually some of the more important one of the more important things that we can work on in this scene.
No, I
Um,
I get you, right. If it starts from top down, it'll start to trickle to the player base, and then becomes a lot easier. So then, I have. So everyone is probably thinking, "Oh, what's the plans? How are we gonna kick the mid year off with a bang? What are we thinking too? What's the Elo future plans?"
yeah, so what I can announce is, look, I don't have a date or format to give you guys, but what I can announce is that sometime within the next month or so, we'll drop the information for the Elo Challenger League, and this will be a high Elo league, similar to something you'd expect from the Summon Society Invitational Circuit. Um, and we'll be definitely looking to kind of give you guys the best possible event there. Really hoping we can get some of the top orgs in and make a uh, give everyone some good entertainment. Just the players, the people spectating, and hopefully implement some of your genius ideas, Envy. We'll make
Ah,
sure to get some. We'll make sure to get some good clips of you.
why is it of me? It's hot. Just oh, am I gonna be
Well,
high elo
you're
by
not
then?
hitting diamond. You're not hitting diamond in time. I've given you a whole month.
A whole month? Fuck! I have to hit diamond and I have to find a team. What team's gonna want some trash fucking gold one main? You know what I'm saying? And I gotta get up to diamond, and I do know a couple guys though who
No,
do
okay,
boosting. So
okay,
like I could be there.
okay.
Right. So
Maybe,
oh, what were you gonna say?
maybe it could be the return of a team with an A.
Ah, nah, he's kind of shit now.
Oh, okay, watch up. Okay.
He was never good, from what people tell me. Um, well, I'd like to thank you for coming on too. I'm sure you're a busy, busy man. Is there anything you'd like to say to the people?
Uh, yeah, use your Twitch Prime.
On envious of me? Surely.
Yeah. Subscribe to Envy on YouTube. That's where you'll be watching this. Twitch Prime. I don't know what his Twitch channel is
It's
because I'm not
still
prepared for that.
it's still envious of me. There's no
Perfect. Yep.
difference.
Envy to me. There we go. He's got the branding on point. Twitch Prime subscriptions, all to Envy, everyone.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time too.
Hey, it was great being here.